Hi everyone, welcome to the Wargaming Parrot. I'm David, and today we're going to be talking about how you can care for your conure. It's going to be a beginner's guide to conure care. It's going to be similar to my cockatiel one, but I'm going to try and make it a little bit more concise because that one really was long, and hopefully it'll be helpful in caring for your conure if you're a new owner, or if you've had one for a while, maybe there'll be some tips you can pick up from it. So you've just got your conure and you're wondering when you're going to be able to do all the lovely tricks you see on the internet with it, and you're going to be able to handle it and cuddle it and do all these lovely things. Doesn't matter if it's a rescue or if you've got it from a pet shop or a breeder, it takes time to bond with a bird. They're very clever and they're also sort of very sensitive to changes. So when you get your conure, give it time to settle in, give it time to bond with you, even if it's hand tame. Just sit with it when it's in its cage, listen to the music when you're around it, get used to its environment. But take your time. You can feed it through the bars, there's all sorts of little tips and tricks, but as I said, take your time, don't rush and relax. I have a video on bonding, which I'll leave a card for here, just in case you want any more tips on it. There's one trait that is incredibly common to almost all conures, and that is biting. Conures love to explore with their beak. Lots of parrots do this, it's just basically like using their hands, but conures are exceptionally so. Everything is done through their beak, and sometimes they can bite a little hard, either because they're overexcited, or they're just curious, or you've annoyed them. So if your conure is biting, it is perfectly normal. It's something you need to work on with them if it's very hard. If it's light biting, it's probably just playful or affectionate, but be aware that they do bite, and just take your time getting used to training them not to. There's all sorts of techniques you can use. Again, I have a video on how to stop biting, which I'll leave a card for now, but be aware they do bite, and it's perfectly normal. There's nothing to worry about. Another exceptionally normal trait for conures is they're very noisy. Some conures in particular are exceptionally noisy, so when you get your conure, if it's being rowdy, it is normal. They will alarm call when they see something out the window, they will yell for you when you leave the room, they will just yell when they're happy. It's just something they do, so be aware, they're very noisy. Another thing I'd like to talk about with conures is mess. They love to throw their food around, they love to rip up their bedding if they've got paper, or if they've got substrate like stuff to throw it around. So be prepared for mess and a little bit of extra cleaning, because that's just what they like to do. So I want to give you a quick example of the mess. You can see there's a lot of bedding being kicked up, chewed up bits of toy and a few bits of food all knocking about down here. This is just a small taste of the mess that conures can produce. This is something I've talked about a lot in many of my videos, and that's diet. Conures need the same sort of diet as many other parrots. There's a misconception that parrots in general eat loads and loads of seed, and this is something that's propagated by pet shops and all sorts of places. It is not true. Seed should only be about 10 to 20% of your parrot's diet. It's perfectly fine to give them seed, but it's just like with humans, you want to give them a balanced diet. So their diet should consist of seed, should consist of lots of fresh veg. It can also consist of pellets, which can be a great supplement if your bird isn't so keen on eating any fresh veg. And you can also give them fresh fruit, because conures, all our conures are sweet beaks. They absolutely love their fruit. Pickles and Olive love banana so much, and Scampi loves his blueberries. So be aware that you can't just give them seed. They need all sorts of things in their diet, and I'll show you an example of a typical chop as well in this video so you can get some ideas. You can also use sprouted seeds. Sprouting is a great way of making seeds healthier for your parrot. And if you want to have a go at that, my partner Sophie has a video on how to sprout, which I'll leave a card for here. Just want to give you a quick example of chop. We've got the chop here that Sophie's prepared. It's just some baby corn, some red pepper, some green bean. It's nice and colourful, it's interesting. Also got a kale and radish here, which are prepared daily as a bit of extra to the chop. It's quite nice for them, very healthy, full of vitamins. When you've got your conure, it's important that you're prepared. It's important that you get the biggest cage you possibly can for them. Sometimes it may not be possible to get a huge cage, but if you can get the biggest cage possible, you're going to make that their home. So the more space they have to move around in there, the more space they have for toys, the more fun they can have in that cage, in their home, the better for the conure. It's also important that you think about the position of the cage before you bring your conure home. So where do you want that cage in the room? Is it going to be near something very noisy? It's going to be near a window that might distress them, or later on make them very happy looking out of it. It might be interesting. So think about that position and get that cage set up in that position, so you're not going to be moving around disrupting them. The other thing I want to mention is toys. It's just like all parrot species, like cockatiels, conures, kaikis, everything. They need toys. They need to exercise that beak to chew things. So instead of chewing on you, they'll be chewing on their toys. They need things to explore, to roam around and do all sorts of things. So it's important that you give them as many toys as possible. You want chewable toys, you want bolster toys, you want to avoid stuff like bells and mirrors because it encourages hormonal behaviour. It's important you get loads and loads of great toys in there so they can have lots of fun in their home. I actually have a video on that. I've been saying this a lot, and I'll leave that in the description if you want to have a peek at cage setups and toys. My next point is on breeders, pet shops and rescues. So where should you get your conure? Where would you want to get it from? Some people say you should always get rescues. All of our conures are rescue conures. If you can handle getting a rescue, that's great. But there are certain challenges, and if you're a beginner bird owner and you really want a conure, you should really think carefully whether a rescue bird is the right one for you. Again, I have a video on this, and it's important. I will leave a card here so you can check out the pros and cons of getting a rescue. But there's nothing wrong with going to a reputable breeder or reputable pet shop to get your bird. If you do, it could be easier because it's hand tame. However, there's also completely nothing wrong with getting a rescue. Just make sure you do your research first and you're well prepared for what may happen. Another thing to consider is, should you get a conure as a single bird or a pair? Obviously, if you're getting a rescue, it may be a single bird and it may not be very easy to acclimate it to having other birds around. All of our conures are very individual and they don't really like each other, and that's going to take time for them to bond. So it's always better to keep birds in pairs because they have a member of their own species they can communicate with, they can dance for each other like Olive's trying to dance for me now, they can do all sorts of things. So it's something worth considering, and if you can, get a pair because it is better for them. If it has to be a single, just spend extra time with it and make sure it gets all of that attention it needs from you, because they really do need a lot of attention, these little guys and ladies. Your conure, being a member of the parrot species, is going to have a very interesting personality. They vary wildly in their personalities. They can be exceptionally bitey, they can be just a little bit bitey, they can be exceptionally cuddly, they can be very curious. There's common species traits, for example, biting, being curious and cuddling with conures. That's something they do. But they may also not be as keen on interacting with you. It may take more training and effort. They may be exceptionally keen on interacting with you, so you may have to avoid hormonal behaviour. These are things to bear in mind when you have a conure, and all of it is manageable. There's no sort of like, oh my goodness, I can't handle this. You can handle this as a bird owner, and you will. Just have to put in the training, put in the effort, do your research and just keep going with it, because their personalities are amazing, and being so individual is one of the best things about them. So just be prepared for their personalities, and they may have different moods and different swings, because I'll talk a little bit later in the video. There's all sorts of things that can go on, so please be aware of that. If you are struggling with behavioural issues with your conure, me and my girlfriend Sophie do have a business on parrot care called Best Behaved Birds, which I'll leave a link for in my description. If there's any sort of help you need, then you can obviously reach out to us in the comments in both our channels. We'll always try and respond and help you. But if you need one-on-one care, we do have that business which can provide you a little bit more care and sort of one-on-one advice that you may not be able to get just from a comment. Something I've noticed with all our conures is they absolutely love to bath. They bath in their food bowls, they will bath in any water. They try, once, I think Pickles tried to get into one of my glasses of juice, which was not going to end well, so we took her away from that. They can bath under the tap. I would never bath my conures in a shower because there's a risk in there. You see some videos, really cute videos of parrots in showers. It's great if they're on a perch above the shower, that's great because they can get all that lovely humidity, but just don't do it in the shower. Okay, anyway. It can also help when they're molting. When conures molt, loads of their feathers will fall out, that's perfectly normal, and they'll be replaced with new ones. This is quite a stressful time for them. Again, I have a video on that and how you can help, just link in the description. And bathing them is one of the ways you can help sort of relieve that irritation. So when they're molting, give them baths and let them enjoy it. When you get your conure, you're going to want to get it outside the cage, and that's great because conures need lots of time out and about with you. The more time you can provide them outside the cage, the better. We have this lovely stand here which lets the conures just sit and be out and about while we're doing other things. Not so good with Scampy because he just loves to zoom around and be crazy, but that's just how he is. But yeah, so your conures need lots of time with you and outside the cage, and it's important you give that to them. They need at least 2 hours, and preferably double that or more, as much as you can give them. Also, when they have that time outside the cage, it needs to be quality time, either interacting with you, playing with toys, doing some training, doing lots of fun things. You can't just expect them to sit. It's fine if they sit around for a bit, but they're going to get bored, like Scampy, they're going to fly off and they're going to start causing trouble. So lots of fun things to do when they're outside the cage. Like humans, it's also important they get lots of exercise. So if you can give them a bit of flight training, again, link in the description to one of Sophie's videos, it's great because if they're flying around, they're getting those wing muscles working, they can enjoy the experience of flying, which is so pivotal to a bird. You know, it's like us running, we love that. Why would they not enjoy flying? So give them that opportunity to fly around and have lots of exercise. So I'm joined now by Scampy, and I'm going to talk about dangers now. There are lots of household dangers to your conure you need to be aware of. The biggest one, I think, is Teflon and non-stick pans. These are highly toxic to almost all parrot species, and you need to avoid using them if you do get a conure. I mean, it's just not worth the risk. I'm just going to let him go up there and enjoy himself. It's not worth the risk to use them. Other household dangers include like cleaning products. Candles are a big one. You don't want to be burning candles around your birds. If you have to, just do it with the door shut, a long way away, and use unscented ones. To be aware of crash risks when they're flying around. You want to be aware of plants that could be harmful to them, so don't let them chew your household plants. You want to be aware of foods as well. Now, foods is a big one. You do not want to be giving your conure human food. You see it so much, and it's just not good for them. They've got their food. If you want to share your food with them, give them a separate little bowl or something. Say, for example, you prepared a salad, give them some undressed leaves from the salad, but don't give them avocado because avocado is bad. Again, a link in the description to some of the more common household dangers you can experience. I just want to give you a brief sort of rundown in this video. Similarly, stuff like open flames, again from candles, or when you're cooking, so keep the kitchen door shut, or even your toilet. Shut the toilet lid because you don't want your conure falling in there. It's gross for them, it's gross for you, and it could be very dangerous. So I mentioned briefly about crashes. When your conure is flying around, there is a risk it might have a crash. They don't suffer from night frights like cockatiels, so that's one slightly less danger, but it can be spooked. And when they get spooked, especially when they're molting, it can knock blood feathers out and cause them injury. So I wanted to talk briefly about first aid. And there's 3 things I wanted to mention. First is cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper is a great anti-inflammatory, and it also can help with pain relief, and it's very commonly found, and you just sprinkle it on top of their food and it can help them immeasurably. The other thing is cornstarch. Say, for example, they do knock out a blood feather, or in a rare case we had an injury to a foot. You can put a little bit on the injury and it will stop it bleeding. The other thing that I didn't mention in my cockatiel care guide, which I'd like to mention here, is apple cider vinegar. Sophie opened my eyes to the wonder of this particular tonic, and it's good for just perking birds up when they're having trouble. None of these things are replacements for a vet visit if you're really concerned, but they all can help if there's a minor issue. So I mentioned cuddling as a very cute and adorable aspect of conures. I'd also like to talk about hormones here. Now, conures love to cuddle, and sometimes if you cuddle or pet them in the wrong way, it can trigger a hormonal behaviour which leads to all sorts of naughty things you don't want to happen, which can also be health risks. So when you're petting your conure, make sure you pet them around the head only. When you're cuddling, watch for signs. If they're flicking their wings a little bit, that's great, it means they're content. If they're growling a little bit, that's content. If they're tossing their heads around, if they're squeaking, if they're making a high-pitched growl, that means they may be getting hormonal, they may be getting a bit naughty with you. So you need to sort of look at how you're cuddling them. Pickles is a great example. She absolutely loves cuddling with me, and she loves cuddling my eye socket. But if she's in a hormonal phase, I can't let her do that, because it means she's going to put herself at risk and her health at risk, which I would not want to do. So I just cuddle her against the side of my head, or I will just pet her very gently and not let her cuddle at all. And when that sort of hormonal phase passes, then I can reintroduce the cuddling again. So please do bear that in mind with your conures, that cuddling can cause hormonal behaviour, and that's a risk with girls, but also with boys, they can get a lot more aggressive and bite you more. So you want to avoid that too. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Again, if you have any tips you'd like to share in the comments or any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Well, thanks for watching and take care. Have a great day.